Welcome to Fully Booked, the bookish podcast where I'll chat about all things book and reading related. Whether you're a new or a pro reader, there's something for everyone to learn. I'm here to help you on your reading journey and find that next great read that will keep you fully booked. Hello, readers, and welcome to episode 63 of Fully Booked. I'm your host, Natalie, and today's episode is going to be my spring TBR and book recs, which is kind of ironic to be talking about right now because I'm pretty sure I saw that snow is on the forecast for today while I'm filming this episode, despite the first day of spring having already passed. I feel like we should honestly just make the first day of spring the beginning of May in Canada, or at least on the east coast of Canada, because that's just how the weather tends to act, and spring doesn't really start until then. Also, this is so not book related, but this is just exciting news for me and for anyone else who is ARMY. But can I say that we're getting fed so well as the ARMY right now? Untitled has already dropped. We had their live performance on Netflix. The Netflix documentary will already be out by now, actually, by the time this episode is posted. And their world tour is literally just about to start. And the lucky few of us are going to get to see them live in 2026. And I'm also so excited because I actually never got to see them live before their hiatus. Partly because I kind of got into BTS only around the pandemic. But I was able to get a ticket to one of their Toronto shows, so I'm so excited to go. I'm just literally counting down the months at this rate until they're coming here. I'm not sure how many of you care because I haven't met that many people in the book space who are ARMY. Shout out to any of you who are. Also, double shout out to any of those who have RM as their bias, like me. But anyways, going back to more book-related topics for today's episode, I did quickly want to talk to you guys about my current read, which is My Husband's Wife by Alice Feeney. And it's actually crazy because it's been less than a week since I started this book, and I'm already a good chunk in. I checked just now, and I have less than 100 pages left. I feel like I'm just flying through this book, and this one is just, I don't know if fun is the right word to describe it, but I'm just having a good time reading it, and I feel like so much has happened, yet I'm still trying to piece together so many things and what is going on. Although I will confess, I'm not the best at guessing all the plot and plot twists in a thriller. If they're really predictable, sometimes I can do it. But there's certain authors that they still kind of get me, and I'm still left here trying to, again, figure out all the pieces. I think Alice Feeney is honestly just becoming a new favorite possible auto read thriller author. I feel like even though I don't pick up a ton of thrillers, I like to pick up at least one thriller a month. It's been kind of nice having that, again, as like a little palate cleanser between my usual genres. So yeah, I just can't wait to see how this one ends, and I can't wait to just continue through her backlist at this rate. Anyways, let's actually get into what you guys are here for, which is my spring book recs and TBR. So for my book recs, I actually only have one for you guys today, which is odd considering I had a lot more book recs in the previous seasons, but this is the only one that I could really think of that I read more recently that fits the springtime, and that is Promise Me Sunshine by Cara Bastone, which makes sense because I think I read it last April or May, so right around the exact time. I will say, the story does take place year-round, but I think the start of this story was set in the spring, if I'm remembering correctly. And then otherwise, it's really the themes in this book that make it feel the most fitting for spring, in my opinion, where we have an FMC who's going through grief, and she has to figure out life after this huge loss, and all these kind of new changes and beginnings that are coming her way. Otherwise, everything about this book just felt so natural. I feel like this is a book that really made me love the friends to lovers trope again. And I already loved the friends to lovers trope even before picking up this book. I think it's just that I hadn't really found any books that were doing it well, because I was either picking up books that were still mostly using the quote enemies to lovers trope, which I just feeling was starting to become a bit rinse and repeat from having picked up so many romance books, or I was picking romance books that were, quote, again, friends to lovers, but they really weren't, because I felt like there was too much flirting and attraction there from the start, so it felt more insta-like rather than like actually being friends, if that makes sense. But I really liked this book because I'm pretty sure she literally says right in one of the first couple chapters that she doesn't find our MMC Miles attractive. I feel like just between her saying that from the starting point, I just got a really good sense of how the plot and romance progression was going to go in this book. And again, I just enjoyed so many parts of this book. And if you guys are looking for a good friends to lovers or just a refreshing and wonderful story, seeing our characters go on a wonderful healing journey together, then I think you'll like this one. And it just makes me excited to pick up the rest of her books, which I am going to be talking about in a bit in my spring TBR. And you guys might already be able to guess which book of hers that I'm going to talk about. Very quickly, before we get into my spring TBR, I did have a couple spring hopefuls that I want to talk about with you guys because these are books that I'm just really hoping to get to this spring because they've just been on my TBR for a while and spring just feels like the right time to pick these books up. So the first one that I'm going to mention to you guys is Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. And yes, this is a very vintagey looking cover for those of you watching because this is my dad's copy. I don't even know where he got this from. And this one really just feels perfect because of Easter season, which will have already passed by the time you guys are watching this, but Easter hasn't happened yet for me. And honestly, some Easter seasons, I am a little bit more low-key, I guess in the sense that I'll usually just read an Easter-themed devotional for the week of Easter to kind of reflect and think more about things in terms of my faith. But I felt like this year just felt like a good time to finally pick up a C.S. Lewis nonfiction read. I've been trying to work my way through the Chronicles of Narnia unsuccessfully, I will admit. But yeah, I just feel like whether you know C.S. Lewis from the Chronicles of Narnia, or if you're also Christian, or if you just happen to read all of his Christian works, he's just very well known and beloved. And I guess I'm just ready to see what all the hype is about with his Christian books, because I think I have all of them saved on Goodreads, and I think my dad might own almost every single one of his Christian nonfiction works. So I'll probably be able to easily continue picking his books up if I want to. And again, Mere Christianity just feels like a good place to start. I feel like this is one that a lot of people picked up a while ago, especially because the TV show came out a couple years ago, and that is Pachinko by Minjin Lee. I'm not going to try to explain this one because I feel like there's so much going on and I don't really want to get wrong. So actually, I think I'm just going to read the description to you guys. So it says here, in the early 1900s, teenage Sunja, the adored daughter of a crippled fisherman, falls for a wealthy stranger at the seashore near her home in Korea. He promises her the world, but when she discovers she is pregnant and that her lover is married, she refuses to be bought. Instead, she accepts an offer of marriage from a gentle, sickly minister passing through on his way to Japan. But her decision to abandon her home and to reject her son's powerful father sets off a dramatic saga that will echo down through the generations. Richly told and profoundly moving, Pachinko is a story of love, sacrifice, ambition, and loyalty. From the bustling street markets to the halls of Japan's finest universities to the pachinko parlors of the criminal underworld, Lee's complex and passionate characters, strong, stubborn women, devoted sisters and sons, fathers shaken by moral crisis, survive and thrive against the indifferent arc of history. I feel like this just has so many elements that I think I will enjoy. Obviously, you guys know I do enjoy historical fiction a lot in general nowadays, but obviously this is a story that is going to be very near and dear to my heart. If you guys haven't guessed by now, or if you haven't watched some of my earlier episodes or videos, I am fully South Korean. I was born and raised in Canada, but I feel like the past couple years have just prompted me to even just spend time with family and learn a bit more about some of our Korean history and traditions, which is hard because I feel like they're fading, the more generations of us are in Canada or just in North America. And so, yeah, I feel like really excited to dive into this story. All my family members read it and loved it. And in particular, parts of the story, some of the locations that we journey through in this story are actually places that my grandmother lived in, grew up in, because she was born around the time of some of the characters in this story and of the Japanese internment. So I feel like this is going to be really interesting to read. This isn't necessarily one that's for spring, but I just really wanted to get to it. And luckily, I was able to get this copy from my aunt. If you guys can tell, I love to borrow books from people if I can, so I don't have to worry about trying to wait at the library. Also, I guess for those of you who haven't read this story and don't know what pachinko means or is, I actually found out that it's actually a Japanese arcade game of sorts that's mostly used for gambling purposes. I don't know that much more about it. I think it has like these pinballs though, so kind of like a pinball machine, but it's not actually a pinball. So I'm very interested what all the literal and metaphorical connections are going to be, considering I'm assuming from reading the description, like part of the story obviously is going to take place in Japan as well. So I think there's going to be a lot of different connections in this book. And again, I'm just excited to find out about it all. And then kind of related, because this last one is by a Japanese author, and that is Sweeping Pace by Dorian Sugawaka, which I'm pretty sure I just butchered that last name, so my apologies. And honestly, this is just one that was on last year's spring TBR that I just didn't get to. And hopefully, if I have enough time left over, then I can try to pick this one up before spring ends, because otherwise I'm probably going to be waiting for another spring to roll around to read this one. I feel like in general, so many Japanese reads feel very cozy, very slice of life and healing, and just perfect for springtime. I don't know what it is about cozy reads that feel fitting for spring. For me, I feel like a lot of people associate cozy weather, cozy season with fall time, which does make sense as we're starting to go into winter, but there's something about easing into spring with these more gentle, healing, slice of life stories that just feels right. Again, to me at least. And we also have so many fun elements for springtime going on, such as the cherry blossoms. This one, I believe, we're set in some sort of confectionery shop. So I feel like it will just be a really good read. Honestly, I have so many Japanese books on my backlog radar at this point that I feel like I really just need to start getting to some of them. And again, this is just the one that I'm hoping to get to most. Let's actually move on to my spring TBR. So as I already alluded to earlier when I was talking about Carabastone, I did end up putting Ready or Not on my spring TBR. The cover for this one is just simply stunning. It's totally spring-like and fits the vibe. And in this one specifically, we have themes of new life, change, and birth. And I'm being literal when I say that last one, because a lot of you probably already know that this one contains the unexpected pregnancy trope. I've heard a lot of people say it's very much similar vibes to Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young, which I have already read that book. I thoroughly enjoyed that one, and The Friends to Lovers. And so I am kind of hoping this one reads similar, but at the same time, I'm hoping it also is a story that stands on its own. I do also think that Carabastone is a very different writer, has a very different writing style from Hannah Bonham Young. She's also a little bit more on the closed door romance side, which I personally appreciate. And I think in this one, we also have our FMC falls for her best friend's brother. So I'm not even sure how involved the baby daddy character is going to be in this book. I don't really know that much about this story except for the things I just mentioned to you guys. But again, it is another slow Friends to Lovers, so I'm really hoping I enjoyed this one just as much as Promise Me Sunshine, because I know I'm jumping ahead, but she also had a new release this year, which is No Matter What, which I also want to get to if I have time. So again, I'm just really hoping I enjoy this one so I can continue on reading her works. Also, I'm realizing now how many romances I still put on my spring TBR. It just happens, guys. I am trying my best to diversify like the genre mix, especially in terms of my seasonal TBRs, and also trying to be mindful that I'm not sure how many of you guys watching or listening are huge romance readers, but like I said, I just can't help it. I'm a romance reader still at the end of the day, and I felt like the ones I picked for the spring truly just feel right for spring, which this next one definitely feels so, and that is What Happens in Amsterdam by Rachel Lynn Solomon. Again, for those of you not watching, this is another stunning cover for spring, especially with all the tulips. And in this one, we have an adult second chance marriage of convenience romance. So in this one, we start off with our FMC Danny, who has moved to Amsterdam to start a new job, and she ends up running into her high school ex-boyfriend Wouter. Again, apologies for any mispronunciation. And this is convenient because he realizes he needs to be married in order to inherit his family home, and she needs a visa to stay in Amsterdam. So what do? They end up getting married. Otherwise, I don't know much about this one, and I'm excited to just go into it because I've only read one of her YA novels, which was Today, Tonight, Tomorrow. I did really enjoy that one, but I find with authors like this who eagerly write YA and adult romance novels, they kind of tend to be hit or miss, where I either really love the YA novels and don't like the adults, or vice versa, although I found so far it's only the former. Lynn Painter is the best example I can think of for this. So yeah, I'm curious to see. I also did think that for a YA novel, Today, Tonight, Tomorrow was a little bit more open door than I was expecting, because usually not as much happens in a YA novel. So I'm not sure what that's gonna mean for her adult novel, so I guess I'll find out when I pick this one up. And then this next one, I actually feel it could be fitting for spring or summer, depending on what your vibe is. But for me, I love a good magical realism romance. And magical realism kind of feels, again, cozy for springtime. So I thought it'd be fun to try to pick up this one in spring, which is The Love of My Afterlife by Kirsty Greenwood. Again, some might argue that this cover could work for spring or summer. I'm just choosing to go with spring for the sake of it. This one has very much The Good Place kind of vibes, where we have this kind of mix-up happen in the afterlife with our FMC Delphi, who has just met this wonderful, perfect stranger, only for him to be sent back down to Earth. But she also has a stroke of luck and gets to return to Earth as well, where she must try to find and reconnect with this perfect mystery man that she happened to meet. Don't know much more about this book besides that, except that there were a bunch of blurbs on here by some of my other favorite authors like Josie Silver and Ashley Poston. So I feel like this book kind of seems like my vibe. I'm very much hoping it's also like Ashley Poston, where there's magical realism, there's romance, but there's also some women's fiction kind of themes going on, like just something else going on besides the romance. Really hoping I'm not disappointed with this one, because this one just feels like it's going to be very fun to pick up. So this next book on the TBR is the one I definitely know the least about, which makes sense because this is a classic, and that is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I can't remember if I actually put this one on last year's spring TBR or if it was one that was kind of just in the back of my mind to get to. But either way, hoping to get to it. I'm going to read you guys a little bit of the Goodreads blurb since I don't know much about this one. So on Goodreads it says, enthralled by his own exquisite portrait, Dorian Gray exchanges his soul for eternal youth and beauty. Influenced by his friend Lord Henry Wotton, he is drawn into a corrupt double life, indulging his desires in secret while remaining a gentleman in the eyes of polite society. Only his portrait bears the traces of his decadence. This story feels perhaps literally and also metaphorically reflective, and there's going to be those types of themes in the book. I really don't know. That's just kind of my guess from, I think, what I read to you guys just now. Hoping this is also going to be my first classic of 2026, because I feel like I've been really bad at prioritizing classics like most of us are. It's also a very short read. It's only 250 something pages, so I feel like if I do pick this one up, I will definitely finish it. For a fun historical read, we have The Unselected Journals of Emma M. Lyon by Beth Brower. Honestly, I just chose this one because I've been in a hangover ever since I finished season 4 of Bridgerton, and I'm still not sure how long we're going to be waiting for the 5th season, so I feel like I really just need something to fix that craving, and I feel like these will just do it. However, I will say this series does take place in the late Victorian era, which is after the Regency period, but it's still all around the same general time period, I guess I will say. It's definitely close enough, and it'll do to cure this Bridgerton hangover that I've been having. Also, everyone has just said these just read so wonderfully. They're super funny, very easy, quick reads, because as the title says, they're journals and they're journal entries that we are reading of our FMC. And I think each book covers only 2 months of a time at her life. They're also all available on Kindle Unlimited. I'm pretty sure the series is not finished though, and I'm not sure how many more she's gonna write. I'm pretty sure there are 8 of these books out so far. But again, I'm not really scared for this one because they are so quick and on the shorter side. So it's a series that I don't really feel is so daunting to dive into. Anything Bridgerton-like just feels great for spring. I don't know what it is about the Bridgerton show that just screams spring overall. Maybe it's just all the wonderful outfits that they wear in the show. I just really love the fashion for springtime so much. But anyways, if you were looking for something easy to read on Kindle Unlimited, then there you go. And for this last one on the spring TBR, we have another super cozy, healing, slice of life story, and that is Welcome to the Hyunam-dong Bookshop by Hwang Borum. And again, for those of you watching, actually, I do apologize for those of you who are listeners only for my podcast. This particular cover version for the book, stunning for spring. We have cherry blossoms and everything going on outside the bookshop, and I just love it personally. This one is honestly pretty simple. We literally just follow our FMC, who is starting over in life. She has quit her job, she's divorced her husband, and she's now setting out to fulfill her dream of opening her own bookshop. So we really just follow her on the day-to-day of learning how to become a bookseller, as well as just facing all these new changes and again, starting over in life. So much of that just feels fitting for spring theme-wise. And I don't know what it is about books set in bookshops that feel very cozy and again, either fitting for the fall or the spring. So I just felt like I really had to pick this one up in spring and see what it's all about. And that is now finally it for my spring book recs and TBR. Hope you guys enjoyed and found some interesting reads to add to your spring TBR. Actually, yeah, leave a comment or let me know on my other social media what is on your spring TBR. I'd love to hear. Maybe I'll have more to add to my spring hopefuls that I'll try to get to. And as always, rate and review the podcast wherever you're listening or watching. Subscribe on YouTube if you're watching right now, but you haven't already done that. I'm not even kidding when I tell you guys, we have a lot of fun episodes that have happened recently or coming up, and you guys are definitely going to want to tune in and get notified of any new uploads. So make sure to go and do that. Early Access Fridays are still happening on Buy Me a Coffee. The link is always in the episode show notes or video description for you guys to access. But having said all that, I hope you all are having a wonderful day, whether it's still winter where you are like I am, or if spring is already come, just go and enjoy whatever season you're in. And I will see you all in the next episode. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope you were able to take away something, and be sure to follow the podcast for more bookish content. Until next time, stay fully booked, and I'll talk to you soon.